knackered voice joined once again by Anthony Torgrud.
What's up, guys? I'm extra glad to be back. This is funny.
Yeah, I literally said just before we hit record that I think my voice has warmed up. It hasn't. It's just betrayed me again. Um, what has this come from? The Euros final. All this shouting for nothing because didn't bring anything home. But yeah, that's why. And also appear to have been battling some kind of virus while out in Germany. So I'll have the few days of hangover from that now. But good to be back in sunny London. It's red hot here as well. And yeah, back into a routine. No days off. Preseason starts at the end of this week, something that we're going to touch upon, as in the first preseason fixture. And there has finally been a bit of movement on the Mercato front. But before we dive in to this week's episode, I want to say thank you to our Substack founding members, Des Windsor McGlynn, Ali Tareen, Tito Mac, Moritz Pullman, Joey Gawler, Kemin, MJ Mats, Luke Villano, Raul Escobar, Jack, Carlo Fassi, Nasser, Merlin Flinker, Derek Favretto, Heavenly 13, and Mike Schulz. Thank you for all the support that you are showing us over on the Substack. Nice to see that list growing before the new season. In terms of content that we've had in the past week over on the Substack, the most recent bonus article was a bit of a rant from Isaac, which he apparently did while he was sat in a vineyard somewhere in Croatia. So if you want to know how the mind works while you sat sipping wine, go and read that. But yeah, it's all about
you would think you wouldn't be able to rant. Yeah.
It looked beautiful as well. He sent pictures. But it was actually a little bit of a peek behind the inner workings of SempreMilan and like how, because of my trip to Germany, him being in Croatia and stuff like that, it's been a bit of a battle to get shifts to line up and things like that, as it would be in any business where you've got multiple people away at the same time. But then also how that hasn't really, like all the work we've done to make it work hasn't been rewarded with anything of note. You know what I mean? Like with no signings or anything like that. But honestly, please go and read that. And you can do a week for free on the Substack. But go and read that because I really enjoy reading it from Isaac's perspective and just knowing that he's somewhere in this like gorgeous vineyard getting wound up about the fact that we haven't signed anyone. But it's been really well received. We've actually had emails about it from people saying, you're doing great. Like keep at it. So thank you for those as well.
You think he needs therapy?
Yeah, honestly, yeah, probably. I'm going to talk to him about it, see if he wants to open up about it. The most recent bonus podcast we did was all about the UEFA coefficient because the new updated rankings for that came out ahead of the new season and the Champions League draw and things like that. We did the newsletter, which is where you can find a bulletin of all the most important stories from the past week, if you can't keep up with everything every day, was also about the striker pursuit taking an interesting turn, something that we are going to talk about. So yeah, you find all that and more over on the SempreMilan Substack. We're hopeful to have more exclusive and early access content on there too, because things are heating up on the transfer front as they kind of need to after a slow start to the summer. But yeah, without further ado, let's dive into it and let's start with the news of the past 24 hours that we're going to get our new number 9. It is going to be Alvaro Morata. Basically, every single source is reporting it. Fabrizio's giving it the here we go. We were among the first ones to talk about his medical being booked in for either tomorrow or Thursday, which is going to be in Madrid, actually. 4-year deal with an option for a 5th. We know his release clause is 13.5 in and around that. It seems like Zlatan had an important role in it in terms of personally convincing him to leave Atletico and come back to Italy. Gut feeling on this deal. We've been linked with every striker under the sun that's been available. We've gone from Xerxes to a much lower cost option. But how do you feel?
It's tough because I don't know how I would feel in an isolated situation with this. Knowing that we were linked with young strikers, we were willing to pay up to 40 million, 50 million if you include those commissions, and then to go for, the guy you wanted in 2017. It's like, he's old. He's never been a favorite of mine. In fact, he's someone I've actively hoped we didn't get multiple times over. He's that name that never goes away. So I don't know. I think just after the way everything's played out, you kind of are like just not there with it. But the more I think about it, the more I do think his style fits our forwards at the very least. You know, Leao, Pulisic, Chukwueze. Um, do I think Morata's going to be a 20-goal striker? No. Do I think we have to have a 20-goal striker? Also, no. But I do think 4 years is a long time for a 31-year-old. As someone who is 31, I can't imagine myself playing professionally for 4 years, let alone 4 months. So there's that. But I don't know. I think everything about this deal is just a little odd, given what we know about the rest of the window and who we've been linked with. He can't be the only striker. If we get another striker, be it Tammy Abraham, another person we're linked with, um, then I'm content with it. You know, he can't be the only guy. I do think it was important to just get it across the line because at this point we don't have a striker with Giroud gone and Jovic being up in the air on if we're gonna try to move him elsewhere or not. Had to get a striker, so it does make sense from their point of view. It's like, okay, this is taking too long. Xerxes wasted too much of our time. Activate the low release clause. Get him here. Experience, knows the league, won every trophy there is to win. Let's be real. He's definitely won everything. You know, not always because of him, but his team scores decent amount of goals, decent amount of assists. Like he does have great stats. You know, if you look at it, you're like, okay. But yeah, so I guess it makes sense. Get him in and then move to the Pavloviches, the Fofanas, get that stuff done, and then maybe go back in for a bigger striker later. You see, Julian Alvarez wants to go elsewhere, a player we were linked with years ago before he went to City. If we were willing to pay 50 million for Xerxes, why not for him? You know, but I don't know. I guess that's just kind of where my head's at with it. I don't hate it, but I definitely am not like excited by it.
Yeah. Also, there would be irony if the money that we're giving them for Morata is like the bit of extra budget they need to go and get someone like Alvarez, who is clearly someone with a higher ceiling and whatnot. But yeah, I'm in the same camp, slightly perhaps more on the optimistic side. It does feel a bit meh. I think we'd have all got behind Xerxes, and I think it would have been more of a statement signing had we got that one over the line, just because of how much he's been talked about, and we know his potential, and it's a bigger operation in terms of finances, and in terms of the story that it would bring, given his Dutch and the past with Milan and stuff. But I actually think that it could be a very functional signing. Like, I think that we could look at it as we could be looking back on it in 12 months as something that was like a smart bit of business. The problem is that the club are fighting a bit of a PR war at the moment, where us as fans, we're seeing rivals do business that we think is smart business. You know, Juve, shiny new manager, rebuilding the midfield, into adding pieces to what they already have on with free transfers and stuff like that. Napoli splashing out for Bongiorno, who's someone we were after. And you know, the thing is, they'll feel like they need to respond, but they shouldn't necessarily respond by going out and overpaying for somebody that they don't believe is worth it. And I do find it interesting. It does feel like a bit of a contradiction that we went from going so all in on Xerxes to shifting to like Lukaku and Morata, and now Fulkrug's been linked as a potential second striker to come in, because they are completely different profiles, really. Fulkrug more so, but in terms of their age and the salary that they're going to demand contractually, it does feel a little bit different, as if we've pivoted and that we might be going down Plan B route, and hopefully that means lots of remaining budget for other positions. And I think that's a factor not to be underestimated in this. Is that it might open some doors elsewhere in the squad. But with Morata, and we're gonna presuming that everything goes to plan and he passes his medical and everything, the bonus podcast will be a deeper dive on him specifically as a player later this week. So we won't go into it too much. But as you say, his stats are far from horrible. He's actually coming into. He's just had his best goal scoring season of his entire career. And then you might also say he's actually played the best football of his career in Italy during his 2 spells at Juve. And when he was at Juve, he was a player who I found really annoying, because it's like he doesn't do anything absolutely brilliantly. and yet he does a lot well. He's a pretty well-rounded forward. And as you mentioned, I think he's going to bring the best out of the players around him. So I'm leaning towards it being a smart bit of business. However, could it also crash and burn potentially? There is there is now a bit of pressure for him to be the man who delivers 15 plus goals again, which I think he potentially will, to be honest. But more than anything, it's a timing thing. We've got in the player that we really needed. We can look for a complementary piece like Tammy Abraham, like Fulkrug, or maybe someone a bit more left field. And we've got 6 weeks now to get the other pieces in place, because we still need that centre back. We're probably still going to sign a fullback. We still need a defensive midfielder. There are other holes to plug, but I think now we know the budget that we've got to go out and do that. Will Morata sell tens of thousands of shirts? I'm not so sure, but he comes as a European champion, unfortunately, and yeah, I get behind him, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he does bring an air of leadership that I think we're missing, at least up front. He obviously was Spain's captain for winning the Euros. He's done it all, and I think that is an understated trait. Regardless of how critical he was to all those title wins, he still was there. So he knows the mentality. He knows. I mean, whether he was giving the speeches or listening to him, he knows what's said. So he could replicate that. And that's something that I think we do need. We are obviously missing it since Zlatan left. Do I think Morata is a Zlatan-esque character? Of course not. But he might bring something a little bit more than the others. And watching him,
he might be a Giroud character.
Yeah, someone who's very well liked in the dressing room. Watching him in the European final after he was subbed off, had a stinker, by the way. He was on the sideline next to the manager almost the rest of the game, barking orders as well. And, I actually really like that. It shows that he cares. And of course, everyone cares when you're in a European final. But it shows. It shows his teammates trust him, or else, if your teammates don't trust you, then you're going to sit down. You're not going to do your thing. So, I don't know. It does show a lot of good faith. And I think there's a lot of positives to the signing. Again, it's just kind of in the slump after where we were starting. And I didn't even really care about Xerxes. It was just the idea, okay, we're going for a young striker who's hot now, who's, 40, 50 million, something we haven't spent on any player. Would have been really cool. It would have been really nice to see, because over the last 10, 15, about 10 years, 10 seasons, our biggest striker signing was a free transfer for a 38-year-old Zlatan. We haven't had a real big striker signing, I mean, think of who have we signed a striker over the last 10 years? Matia Destro, like Fernando Torres. I mean, no, I think Torres, no disrespect, I love him, but
yeah, I love Fernando. I think the one that everyone will point at is Piontek and say that we sort of signed a bit of a half-season wonder. We paid probably over what he'd shown so far, but just to sign the hot property, we had that management in, and I think they wanted to make a statement. And we signed Paqueta obviously in the same window as well, and it backfired. He gave us a few good games, and then he fell off a cliff. And I think there were a few people looking at Xerxes and potentially thinking, this ain't our sweet spot. When we overpay, or you see with CDK, different position, but same sort of premise. When we pay high, it doesn't tend to go well, So maybe they've gone for a bit of a comfort blanket in that sense, rather than a big economic risk. Because people always talk about Xerxes and say, well, we should have done it because resale value. Well, CDK's value, we ended up getting way less than what we paid, or comfortably less than what we paid for him. So it doesn't always work that way,
Yeah.
And I was going to save this lukewarm take for the bonus pod, but I'll put it out there now. I think Morata will score more goals for us next season than Xerxes would have.
And I probably agree with that. I don't think Xerxes was a big goal scoring guy. Morata's at least been consistently above 10 per season. I think closer to 15 every season of his career.
I think he's been double digits every season for over 10 years, which is
at least in all comps for sure. Yeah.
21 last season, I think he got, which is
Yeah, he did.
don't turn your nose up at that, because especially if, as we kind of mentioned with the wingers, if he turns them into 10 plus goal scorers as well, or more than that, which because they have been, then yeah, we could be looking at something good. But yeah, stay tuned later this week. Bonus pod, we'll dive into him a bit more and how he plays, etc. In terms of other Mercato stuff, the big centre back link is Stranhir Pavlovic, who plays at Red Bull Salzburg. That seems to be moving in the right direction. Seems like the player wants to join. And I would be really happy with that one. Maybe I'm biased because I like an old school centre half, but there's a lot of upside with him as a player. I like the battle that he showed at the Euros. Obviously, watched him firsthand against England, and I like his mould of defender. And I think that he could be a really good complement to Tomori. And I think that one thing we need next season is a consistent back four. It chopped and changed way too much last season. Obviously, we need a defensive midfielder to help them out a bit. But in terms of the mould of centre back that we're going for, especially with Kier out the door, and yeah, his fitness had gone by the end. But I think it's the right type of player to be going for. And so I'd be happy if we got him in.
100%. I voiced my excitement in the chat, and you quite blatantly think I'm lying when I say I've seen him at least 15 times play. But I have. So I'm a big fan of the guy. My worry is the price. Knowing what just happened with Xerxes, are we really going to spend 40 million on him? I think he's worth it. Does the management? I don't know. I hope so. I hope they don't think they have to sell someone first to do that. They really shouldn't have to. I mean, I know financially we don't have to, but reality is always different than what you can do is not what you will do. So we'll see what happens there. But I mean, like you said, it's perfect to complement Tomori. It's exactly what we need, and I think that would lock up our defense very well. Supposedly we're going to be using Kululu as right back, which I'm good with also. And if we do that, then it saves us the money on needing to go for Emerson Royale, and I think that's always a plus. So thank you, Spurs, for not budging on your ridiculous price tag for a very underwhelming player. And yeah, Pavlovic all the way. That's if we sign him, that'll be the name on the shirt I buy for sure.
When he takes the number 6
or 3.
Or 3, yeah. That would be funny. I echo all of that. On the price tag, I mean, we've done business with Salzburg before for a lower fee than what was said. Like when Okafor was supposedly 30 mil, and then it's like we got it done for 14 or whatever. And if he wants to move, then I think that's positive. I guess you've always got to be wary of like a Premier League or a big Bundesliga side coming in and putting more cash up, and that's why we need to wrap it up quickly. Same with Fofana, who is again another player who things seem to be moving in the right direction for. You keep seeing stuff about hijacks from Atletico Madrid or from some Premier League teams, but then when the dust settles, it turns out we're still well in the lead. So I hope we get that one done as well. He wouldn't have necessarily been my number one target for the defensive midfield position because I think he's a bit more of an 8, to be honest. But at the same time, the job that he does for France and sort of facilitating their more forward-thinking midfielders has me minded towards saying, yeah, we can probably get away with it, and it would be a good signing, and obviously he knows a lot of the players on our team already as well. So yeah, there's a few things moving. I agree with you on the Emerson Royale thing. Keep him as far away as possible. We do not need him. We do not need to be spending more than 20 million for him. That's for sure. Let's move on. We got our first friendly of the summer on Saturday evening against Rapid Wien in Vienna. This one is going to be interesting because there's basically nobody available.
Exactly.
It's going to be tough to draw many conclusions from this one. Obviously, the attack is going to be where we are most heavily hit. I think there's only like Colombo, Nasty, Shaka Traore. The group of forwards that's available is not great, but useful minutes for them. Also, we won't have quite a few of the Futuro lads because Italy under-19s are in the European Championships at the moment, so they're gone for a little bit of time. So we won't see Kamada, Zaroli, etc. So it's going to be a bit of a thin squad for this one. But again, it'll probably just be a bit of a glorified training session, really.
Yeah.
I'm not going to read too much into the result of this one, but it will be good to see us out there playing a game of some description again. The new kits, they'll be out there. Oh, no, we saw him in the last game.
New gaffer, Mr.
Yeah, new
Fonseca.
manager.
Yeah.
Might start to see some indications on his style, and maybe like if Kalulu starts at right back, then we can take something from that. But yeah, essentially it's going to be a fitness mission. I think we will start to see more concrete stuff, and obviously more players coming back, which I will run down in a second. In the USA tour, obviously a higher level of opponent, players rejoining, a bit more work on the training ground, and I guess a bit more of a duty to perform because there's going to be big crowds in big stadiums against big teams. So this is sort of like the warm-up act, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be interesting because I don't believe Mignon will be with us at all during preseason. I think he gets back after the final game, which I'll be at, or he'll join us before that final game. I don't know. But
shall I do the rundown now? Because there was a report that basically broke down when the players are expected to return, and it's because obviously the players that have been in major tournaments have been granted a period of rest, a holiday basically afterwards, which is fair enough. Jovic, because Serbia were knocked out in the group stages of the Euros, is expected to join the squad on July 23rd. That means that he will not be available for Saturday's friendly, obviously. Pulisic and Musa, again, group stage elimination from the Copa. They're expected to join the squad before the Man City friendly. So that's the first one that we play in New York, I believe.
Yeah, that'll be on the 27th.
So whether they'll play or not, I don't know. But they're expected to be actually with the squad training again. You've got to imagine that they'll play all the games, even if it's just a portion, just because of what it means. You know, it's a commercial exercise.
And I'm pretty sure Pulisic will actually be back for the Madrid game in Chicago, the first one. I'm pretty sure he'll be there for it, but unconfirmed.
We've got is that right? I thought the Man City game was first.
I thought it was Chicago against Madrid on the 23rd, and then Man City on the 27th. Maybe I have those flip-flopped.
Oh yeah, other way around. City on the 27th at Yankee Stadium, Real Madrid at Soldier Field on the 1st of August.
Oh.
And then Barcelona on the 7th of August in Baltimore. So yeah.
Oh, you're one day ahead on all those because it's...
Oh, of course, yeah, because it's the early hours in the morning.
Okay,
yeah. So
all right.
We wind that a day. Yeah.
All right, that makes sense.
So yeah, Pulisic and Musa back before that first friendly, so they could play all three in theory, but probably manage their minutes a little bit. Leao and Okafor before the Real Madrid friendly, the second friendly. And then we've got Reinders, Teo, and Maignan are joining up at the end of the tour or just after. So there's a little bit of a doubt about them. But Morata is obviously, because Spain went all the way, Morata is probably not going to join up until we're back in Italy, but that's fair enough.
Understandable. Yeah, it's not like he needs to warm up or anything. So
no.
Yeah, it's double-edged sword when you have these international competitions like that. For these reasons, the good news is the players who are coming back late are some of the most experienced ones we have. They don't exactly need to get to know the team outside of Morata, who is experienced enough in the sport that I don't think it'll be too much of an issue. Plus, it's not like he's been rusty. He was just in a final. So I don't think it'll be an issue. I think they'll all be fine for game one. Is it Torino again? Who do we play?
Yes, Torino at home. Yeah. Torino at home on the 17th of August. So we've got that Barca game on the 7th of August, and then we come home for the Trofeo Berlusconi. I wouldn't be surprised if, because of all the travel and everything, we don't field a particularly serious team in that. I might be wrong. We might, because we took it seriously last time, when it went to penalties and we won. But it's just having those 10 days and getting back from the States, and you don't want to be playing something that's guised as a competitive friendly a few days before you're opening up your season,
Yeah,
but we'll see.
I think the last friendly they tend to take a bit more seriously because it should be the finished product, right? Like it should be okay on preseason. So I would imagine a mostly strong starting lineup, and then maybe just halftime heavy rotations. Heavy rotations,
Yeah, I agree with that. Right, yeah. So that's us all caught up, I guess. Bring on a bit of game action on Saturday. One thing I will say is went to Vienna once. Lovely city. Would have liked to have been out there for this game actually, but obviously can't. And a really, really nice stadium. If you've never seen it, look up Allianz Park where Rapid Wien play. Gorgeous new build stadium. So yeah, looking forward to seeing the lads run out there. And let's do some questions. We got quite a few in this week. We did say we were going to do a bit more questions led in the absence of any actual signings and whatnot, but I will go through them now. We got 3 from Michael Gambino, and I'm going to ask them all. Moncada showing faith in Kalulu as the right back is promising because that means potentially passing up on Emerson. Is the money for Pavlovic separate, or will another investment in defence be made? So we kind of touched on the Kalulu and Pavlovic stuff. I think we're in favour of Kalulu playing right back and Pavlovic arriving as a centre back. But do you expect another defensive signing in addition to Pavlovic, I guess?
Yeah, but I'd expect it as like a defensive midfielder. I don't expect it as an additional center back, unless we sell Chow. But I don't think we would. I think Simic is going to play Futuro. Kier's obviously gone. Who else is remaining as center back?
Gabia.
Gabia. Yeah, so Gabia will be third. So you want a fourth. So I think you bring in Pavlovic and you don't sign in someone else.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that's been coming out about Simic is quite worrying in the sense that, and I think he's totally fair to do this, by the way. He wants to play senior football. So all the reports that are saying Simic is going to be a fixed point of, the under-23s Futura or whatever, I'd be tempted to say to him, look, you're our fourth centre-back. And we need to use that as sort of a way to keep him. Like, you're going to be playing games there, but when we need you, we'll call you up here. It might be fourth, might be fifth centre back. The Athletic said again this morning that Newcastle are trying for Malik Chow. So we'll see. Because I think, let's be honest, as much as there's something in there with him, and we have seen high levels, he hasn't sustained them for a long period. He had big injury problems last season. I think we all have a price we'd sell Chow for. And then maybe that moves the goalposts a little bit. But yeah, like, don't forget about players like Gabia, who was probably our best, most consistent player in the second half of last season. That's good depth to have. And someone like Simic does need minutes if we are to convince him to stay because he hasn't signed a renewal yet. So interesting. It's a bit of a headache, to be fair. And then also don't forget Kalulu can also play centre back if needed. So do I think Pavlovic will be the only defensive signing? I'm going to say yes, unless there's a sale. So it's a bit of a cop-out answer, but I do think that's the way that it might go. What are your thoughts on, this is Michael again, what are your thoughts on Pelagati's comments about Tonali returning to the club? Did you see them?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I'll read them out word for word, just because I don't want to cut anything off. He said, in a month, we will celebrate Sandrino Tonali's return to the field. We won't celebrate it, but Newcastle fans will, I guess. Yeah. In my opinion, in 2 to 3 years, when he's still very young, Tonali will continue his career at Milan. It's my idea. In my opinion, in 3 or 4 years, Tonali will be the captain of Milan.
No. He might return, but he won't be the captain. We know how the armband is decided. It goes off of appearances. If he leaves for 4 years, whatever it'll be at that point, you're not going to come back as a captain. There's other players you're going to have more appearances than him. I don't know how many he's bagged currently, but I'm sure it's around 100.
Yeah.
but I know Teo has a lot more. I know Leao has a lot more. If Pulisic's playing 50 games a season, he's going to have a lot more in 4 years. Like there's going to be a different captain. So that's that's daydreaming. That's fanboyism. That's silly. Will he return? Of course, that's always a possibility. I think there's a good relationship between him and the club, and they would want him back. The main concern is he just had a year-long suspension for gambling. So maybe
Yeah.
don't do that anymore.
Mm.
For me, I wouldn't even touch him until we could see that that's been resolved, taken care of, and he's not going to do anything stupid again. Yeah, and before I get hate comments, see that little blue jersey right there above my finger? That is a Tonali shirt. Like, I'm a fan of the player. I use my head, and I don't want someone who might get popped for gambling and then be banned for a full season. That's not conducive to anyone. So keep him away unless that's resolved, and then sure, bring him back.
Yeah, and obviously it depends how he comes back as well, because like if he comes back after his long absence and looks shit, then Newcastle might be looking to offload to kind of protect the investment that they made, especially with the financial issues that they're now encountering. But if he comes back and hits the ground running, then all of a sudden it's like, they're starting to see what they paid for, and therefore it pushes the potential return, I think, a bit further down the line. I remember when he left, he did an interview, or was it a social media post, where he basically said, it's not goodbye, but see you later.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm utterly convinced that he will return at some point. I think he'd have to drop off a cliff form-wise to not come back, as in, like, not be good enough for us anymore. When that is, I don't know. It could be, the thing is, it could be over half a decade and he'd still
Mhm.
be in his mid to late 20s. So, like,
How old
time's
is
on
he
his
now?
side. 23, is he?
Yeah, he's got time.
So there's time on his side. I don't want him to come back when he's like 35, obviously. He's
Yeah, that doesn't
24.
help.
He's 24. So give it half a decade and he'll be 29. Um, that might be the time when he becomes, who knows, a little bit homesick, wants to come back to Italy. We'll wait and see. So if you ask me for my gut feeling, will he come back at some point? Yes. Will it be in the near future? No.
Well, he
I
just
don't think
spent a
so.
year in Newcastle, so he probably is homesick already.
Yeah, but all them Gregs, mate. He
Oh,
he booked
great. Those
he
sausage
booked
rolls.
yeah, man. He booked a table in the Weatherspoons in the centre of Newcastle for the Euros final, which I thought is quality, because like you do realise he's just a bloke.
Yeah.
Like rather than any private parties or whatever, no, I'm just going to show up at Weatherspoons and watch the game with all the Newcastle fans.
That is a crazy
Um,
place to do it.
mm. But it was phenomenal when
Yeah.
Cole Palmer scored. But yeah. Anyway, final question for Michael Gambino. What are your thoughts on the Chiesa rumor? Could he work as a right winger with Pulisic moving to number 10?
So I hadn't heard this rumor at all. I didn't see it anywhere. And my boss called me yesterday and asked me what I thought about it, and I said, I don't know what you're talking about. So I didn't know that this was a thing, and yeah, I don't really have any feeling towards it. We have Chukwueze, we have Pulisic, so where does he fit? Who gets pushed out? I would pick both the ones we currently have over Chiesa.
Right, so I'm just looking here because I don't know what the Chiesa rumor is. Like, I hadn't really seen it, same as you. I just looked on our site, and of course, we're always up to date on all the news. Tuto Sport mentioned us in
Okay,
May,
fake.
so probably fake, but also they tend to be a bit better on the Juve stuff, being Turin based, whatever. Exactly 1 month ago, Gazzetta said that we were interested. Again, probably fake news, therefore. And then it was 14th of July, so Sunday. The source for this is Luca Monblana, so also going to be fake news. Said that Milan want him, and there's the idea of a swap deal involving potentially Salamakers, who Motta wants. Let's actually. So Chiesa thing, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think it's something that we particularly need. I think he's best in a front two. I think he's had way too many injury problems for any team to really take a serious punt on him. I think we're well covered. I think I don't see us being able to strike a deal with Juve either, because both teams are going to want to overprotect themselves if it comes
Mhm.
to an exchange deal or whatever. Um, But let's just slightly change the discussion. Salamakers is back.
I would
Have you
rather
got
keep
any?
Salamakers
Yeah, that's what
than
I
go
was
for
going to ask.
Chiesa.
That's what I was going to ask.
Because Salamakers offers us more flexibility. You know, he could do more things. We could play him as an attacking right back, which actually fits Fonseca's system very well. Whereas Chiesa, you're not going to play him defensively. You know, that just isn't happening with him. So Salamakers actually gives us added security. I'm fine if we keep him, to be honest with you. If Salmaker stays with us this season, and I think he will, he put on Instagram or Twitter, one of them the other day, yesterday, and it was just a picture of him, you know, returning to the training ground, and he just put home. You don't put that if you know you're being shipped out immediately.
It'll be so funny when he joins Genoa in like 2 days on loan with
It'd be
option.
so funny, yeah. Clip it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think he's probably gonna stay. I think he's had a talk with Fonseca. I mean, we know they've talked. We've seen them talk, obviously. But it looked like they were getting along. It looked like they had ideas. And look, he could be an option. It could be we're going into next season. Kalu starting right back. Salamaker's off the bench. Remember, we signed Salamakers to be a right back originally. He just showed how good he could do going forward, and we decided, all right, he's a winger now. We also didn't have a right winger at the time, so now we have two very good right wingers. There's no point in adding a third lesser right winger when we have Salmakers at home. You know, like keep him.
I Calabria's just like, what the fuck, guys?
Yeah,
he's now become like the fourth choice right back.
Yeah, he's going to the Futuro.
So last season, Salamakers was used basically exclusively on the left by Thiago Motta, and it was a similar situation to what Pioli did by using him on the right. In that it offered a bit of balance because Orsolini was the more attacking winger. Salamakers gave a bit more coverage, what have you. That is what I'm.
Southgate just stepped down.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
That's
scared
good
he's going
news.
to come to the US.
Yeah, take him.
Nope.
Take him.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'll process that at a different moment, but the time had come. So I'm thinking about Salamakers being on the left as potentially Leao's backup, and that would obviously give a bit more coverage for Teo and stuff like that, and then potentially moving Okafor into the middle, the position that I think he's looked a bit more capable in, and him basically being Morata's backup. Because if we're saying Morata's not an out-and-out penalty box number 9, and he sort of gets involved in the build-up and he drops in and stuff like that, I think we've seen stuff to suggest that Okafor could potentially do that as well. I'm just kind of spitballing as we go here. But I was just thinking about if you do keep Salamakers, then you have got a backup wing option, and you can focus entirely on playing Okafor down the middle.
I like that too. That was my hot
Yeah.
take at the end of last season, was that Okafor would be our starting striker for this season. So yeah, I support it just so I look right.
Yeah. I think all the stuff about Pulisic playing down the middle kind of needs to stop. Regardless of what your thoughts are on him, on RLC and stuff like that, he played basically every game last season as a right winger and put up his career best numbers. He's done interviews saying that playing on the right has given him a new lease of life because he's able to cut in and cause damage that way. You don't change that. You don't try and fix what isn't broken. You let him and Chukwueze compete like fuck for that starting spot. You know, you hope competition drives the levels higher and things like that. And I think we'll get a good season from Chukwueze as well. So I think if you keep Salamakers, it potentially, and you use him on the left where he was last season, and he did quite well in the second half of last season, it removes quite a lot of the crowding that had sort of come about in the attack. But we'll wait and see. There is also the chance that Salamakers gets used as a counterpart in a deal, and just because he thinks he's home doesn't mean the management do. You know,
Yeah,
like Adley in it. Adley
Yeah.
could very well be sold, even though he would probably get a Milan tattoo or whatever. Like he loves the club that much. Let's continue. Abdurrahman asks, do you think Ibrahimovic will lead Milan to win again? And where do you rank Moncada if you compare him to the other sporting directors in the league? So Zlatan did that press conference, obviously, where he said, "I'm back because I want to win." And other fans have concerns, but don't worry, we want the same thing, and that is to win. Of course, he's going to say that. He's not going to come out and say top four's great. Let's keep this going. That's not him. I do believe him because he's
Zlatan.
almost psychopathically driven
Yeah.
to win. You know, we've seen it. We've seen it when he came back, the impact that he had. And I think he will continue to have that impact. I think it's been a few months for him of kind of getting finding his feet a little bit in the new job and being useful in all the different areas that he can be. You know, he's ringing potential signings to try to convince them, and successfully in the Morata case. You see him at Milanello talking to players. Like there's a lot of realm of influence that he can have, and I do think he can raise the level definitely. Whether he can lead us to win specifically is a difficult question to answer. I hope so.
Yeah.
That's all I've got.
That's it, right? Like, we don't know what the future holds. It's impossible to predict. Well, not impossible to predict, but it's really difficult to predict like how his tenure at Milan's going to play out when we're, a month into it. Really, maybe a month and a half, 2 months. There's a long way to go. I know Moncada's a lot more jacked than I thought he was. I saw a picture and I was like, damn, his arms are big. So that
Optically,
alone,
that's good.
yeah, that alone means he's above the rest of the sporting directors in Serie A because they typically are old, ugly, fat men. And Moncada's not. So, we're up. And that's all I got.
Number one, numero uno. Yeah. Where would I put Moncada? So he's another one who's also just kind of getting into the role a little bit. I mean, he's technically the technical director, not the sporting director, but it is what it is. We know what it means. Like the leading man when it comes to the transfer windows. We haven't seen loads from him. He's almost been like a background figure for years with us as the chief scout, and you sort of hear of him and his eye for players and things like that. But I always got the impression that he never really wanted to step up, and he was happy to be that background figure. Instead, was proven wrong. He took on the bigger job, and I think he's got more responsibility now, certainly more influence. But I'd almost be tempted to say let's wait and see what he can do, because there's a working group and things like that. But one thing I will say is I think obviously Morata is the best. As much as I hate the guy, and you can't tell if he's looking at you or looking if a bus is coming, I don't think you can doubt that he's the best. He's the best director in the league, unfortunately. I also think Giuntoli is probably above him at the moment as well too. The work that he did to assemble that Scudetto winning Napoli side deserves a lot of praise. And then obviously he made the move to Juve, and I can only say that the business they've done so far this summer, his first proper summer, shall we say, has been good. They got the manager that they wanted. They're rebuilding the midfield in quite a scary way. And I think there's more to come. They're in for players like Todibo at centre-back and stuff, and signed Di Gregorio, of course, to replace Szczesny. Like, they're doing smart business as well. In terms of the others, you can always look at figures like Sartori at Bologna and say that miracle that they did last season was technically orchestrated by him and Motta. They did smart business, and Atalanta as well. They've got a bit of a group with like Percassi in there and stuff. They always seem to do well from a player turnover point of view. But I think Moncada, if you look at the core of players that he's built, and hope that the signings that we made last summer, because there were 10 of them, continue to push on from there. He's right up there in the league, and there's been rumours of teams being interested in poaching him, and I don't think that comes about from him being bad at his job. Let's put it that way. He essentially unseated Maldini, really. Cardinale
was
said,
bad at his job.
Yeah, Cardinale said, I trust you more than I trust these two guys who were in charge when we won the league. Like that's something pretty big. But I also think that his sort of like data-driven methods and stuff are probably more favourably viewed by the ownership. But yeah, another slight cop-out answer. But let's wait and see. But at the moment, I think he's right up there. Aziz Taro asks, with experienced defenders such as Hummels and Ramos available on a free, why aren't we going for them? Surely having an experienced centre-back to couple with our younger ones would benefit the team. I think we've spoken a bit about Hummels before, and I
He
would
was
sign him.
linked. Yeah,
He was
I would
linked.
too. It sounds like he's going to go to Como, right? Did I see that the other day?
Varane's gone to Como.
Yeah, but I swear I saw Hummels linked as
He
well.
was
Or no,
also
he's
linked.
Bologna.
Bologna, yeah, Bologna were
Yeah.
linked.
I think he still got it. I think he still could get a year or two out of him. But
Yeah.
is it the right move? Probably not long term. If we sign Pavlovich, then maybe bring in Hummels on a free as like on a 2-year deal, 3-year deal, or something like that. While Simic develops elsewhere or something, maybe Simic goes on loan if he doesn't want to be a part of the U23. I don't know, but I just don't see us going for him. I think the days of old, like really old signings are probably gone. At
Mm.
38 is well past it. I mean, we're complaining about Morata being 31, and now we want a 38-year-old center back. Yeah, he was in the
Hummels is
Champions League final.
35.
Okay, still 35.
It's
I
still,
mean,
yeah.
that's how old Morata's going to be at the end of his current contract. Like, you give
He had,
almost the same contract. He's 40.
yeah. He had his first injury-free season in a while last season, did Hummels. And I think that sort of caused his stock to rise again. Obviously, he was good in the Champions League run. There's no guarantee that continues, especially with our luck and our record.
That's one thing about Morata as well that is actually good. If you look at his injury record, yeah, he has a lot of them, but they're all 1 day, 2 day, 5 day. I think his longest injury was 10 days, and he missed 5 games because it was just that season where games are boom, 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 boom. But yeah, I mean, a 10-day injury, I would be so happy if Mignon only got injured for 10 days instead. Like,
Yeah.
so that's a good record to have. It keeps you young.
Yeah. Well, Sergio Ramos is obviously a no. We should write that off. Would I like to see Hummels? Yes, because I think even if he doesn't play every game, even if he doesn't play most of the games, I think he could be a pretty good mentor for a defensive group that was really, really, really brittle last season, really quite frail mentally.
Yeah.
However, I don't think we should necessarily go out and sign a 35-year-old just for the sake of it. Like we should do it because we see him having a genuine impact on the field. The rumors have kind of died down a bit. They were mostly on the German side from like Bild and stuff, saying that we were exploring the idea. Roma as well. But I think you probably turn away and you go for somebody like Pavlovich, just because it's a better long-term investment, higher ceiling. But it does look like Hummels is going to end up in Italy. So in that sense, it'll be interesting to see where he does end up. Is it somewhere like Bologna or does one of the big teams take a punt on him and just hope, really? Final question, then we'll wrap it up. Gregory Peck says, I like Loftus-Cheek, but I do think we need a playmaker, number 10, that can split the defence with a pass and has an eye for goal. Should we seek a new player in that role or try Reinders there?
I don't think we should play with a number 10 next season. I think Morata is going to be doing enough work on his own that he's going to kind of be both a 9 and a striker. And I think if we just get a defensive midfielder instead, that's going to fix more problems. So we put, say, Fofana in front of the defense, and then you have Reinders and Benacer, or Reinders and Loftus-Cheek or something, that's allowed to be more box to box, because that's where Loftus-Cheek shines. He's doing that. He's not. I mean, I know he got 10 goals last season, but I think that was more product of his position than of him. I would rather him sit back a little bit more. Than I don't think we need an attacking midfielder.
No, I agree. I would formally switch to a 4-3-3, for various reasons, both on and off the ball, and I also think RLC has shown what he can do in terms of progressing the ball with the dribble, whereas Reinders is certainly more pass oriented, I would say. I mean, would things change if we were to go out and say hijack the Coop Miners deal or something? Maybe. maybe then you think, okay, we've got all the ingredients required here to field a pretty fearsome midfield. But as things stand at the moment, 4-3-3, we've got plenty of players who can play the box-to-box position. We are going to sign a more natural defensive midfielder, and excuse me, I think we will be better for that. Also, like, I agree with you. Like, I think a lot of Loftus-Cheek's goals last season were more just like ending up in the right place at the right time with surprise runs. Fucking hell, I'm dying. So don't like completely eliminate that element of surprise. Pulisic scored quite a few of his goals coming inside as well, and as you say, I think Morata's going to drop in. So I think we can get away without playing. Without playing with the 10. Maybe that will change it if we go out and sign somebody that can fit that position, but it doesn't look like we're going to do that at the moment. We're going to wrap it up there. My voice has finally decided to give in. Sorry, everyone. I was a bit hoarse during this one. Hopefully it'll be back for later in the week. I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. Find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. AJ, cheers for joining.
Yeah, everyone, we'll catch you on the bonus, and then again next week.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.
Gol! Ancora Teo! È una meraviglia! Il gol di Teo Hernandez da un'area all'altra! È una meraviglia! Senti il mio cuore!